You were known in prison as Wyoming Ed?" "Yes, sir." "If that was not your name, why did you use it?" "Because Colonel Jim, on the train, asked me to do that. He said it would give him a pull in England to get me free." "Did you know Wyoming Ed?" "Yes, sir. He was one of us three that held up the train." "What became of him?" "He was shot dead." "By one of the passengers?" There was silence, during which the old man groaned and bowed his head. Jack was studying the floor. Then he looked up at me and said, "You don't expect me to give a pal away, do you?" "As that pal has given you away for the last 5 years, it seems to me you need not show very much consideration for him." "I'm not so sure he did." "I am, but never mind that point. Colonel Jim Baxter shot Wyoming Ed and killed him. Why?" "See here, my friend, you're going a little too fast. I didn't say that." He reached somewhat defiantly for the bottle from Canada. "Pardon me," I said, rising quietly and taking possession of the bottle myself. "It grieves me more than I can say to restrict my hospitality. I have never done such a thing in my life before, but this is not a drinking bout. It is a very serious conference. The whisky you have already taken has given you a bogus courage and a false view of things. Are you going to tell me the truth, or are you not?" Jack pondered on this for a while, and then he said, "Well, sir, I'm perfectly willing to tell you the truth as far as it concerns myself, but I don't want to rat on a friend." "As I have said, he isn't your friend. He told you to take the name of Wyoming Ed so that he might blackmail the father of Wyoming Ed. He has done so for the last 5 years, living in luxury here in London and not moving a finger to help you. In fact, nothing would appal him more than to learn that you are now in this country. By this time he has probably received the news from the prison doctor that you are dead, and so thinks himself safe for ever." "If you can prove that to me," said Jack. "I can and will," I interrupted. Then, turning to Sanderson, I demanded, "When are you to meet this man next?" "Tonight at 9 o'clock," he answered. "His monthly payment is due, and he is clamouring for the large sum I told you of." "Where do you meet him? In London?" "Yes." "At your master's town house?" "Yes." "Will you take us there, and place us where we can see him and he can't see us?" "Yes. I trust to your honour, Mr. Valmont. A closed carriage will call for me at 8, and you can accompany me. Still, after all, Mr. Valmont, we have no assurance that he is the same person this young man refers to." "I am certain he is. He does not go under the name of Colonel Jim Baxter, I suppose?" "No." The convict had been looking from one to the other of us during this colloquy. Suddenly he drew his chair up closer to the table. "Look here," he said, "you fellows are square, I can see that, and after all's said and done, you're the man that got me out of clink. Now, I half suspicion you're right about Colonel Jim, but anyhow, I'll tell you exactly what happened. Colonel Jim was a Britisher, and I suppose that's why he and Wyoming Ed chummed together a good deal. We called Jim Baxter Colonel, but he never said he was a colonel or anything else. I was told he belonged to the British Army, and that something happened in India, so that he had to light out. He never talked about himself, but he was a mighty taking fellow when he laid out to please anybody. We called him Colonel because he was so straight in the back, and walked as if he were on parade. When this young English tenderfoot came out, he and the Colonel got to be as thick as thieves, and the Colonel won a good deal of money from him at cards. But that didn't make any difference in their friendship. The Colonel almost always won when he played cards, and perhaps that's what started the talk about why he left the British Army. He was the luckiest beggar I ever knew in that line of business. We all met in the rush to the new goldfields, which didn't pan out worth a cent, and one after another of the fellows quit and went somewhere else. But Wyoming Ed, he held on, even after Colonel Jim wanted to quit. As long as there were plenty of fellows there, Colonel Jim never lacked money, although he didn't dig it out of the ground. But when the population thinned down to only a few of us, then we all struck hard times. Now I knew Colonel Jim was going to hold up a train. He asked me if I'd join him, and I said I would if there wasn't too many in the gang. I'd been into that business afore, and I knew there was no greater danger than to have a whole mob of fellows. 3 men can hold up a train better than 3 dozen. Everybody's scared except the express messenger, and it's generally easy to settle him, for he stands where the light is, and we shoot from the dark. Well, I thought at first Wyoming Ed was on to the scheme, because when we were waiting in the cut to signal the train, he talked about us going on with her to San Francisco. For I thought he was only joking. I guess that Colonel Jim imagined that when it came to the pinch, Ed wouldn't back out and leave us in the lurch. He knew Ed was as brave as a lion. In the cut, where the train would be on the upgrade, the Colonel got his lantern ready, lit it, and wrapped a thin red silk handkerchief round it. The express was timed to pass up there about midnight, but it was near 1 o'clock when a headlight came in sight. We knew all the passengers would be in bed in the sleepers and asleep in the smoking car and the day coach. We didn't intend to meddle with them. The Colonel had brought a stick or two of dynamite from the mines and was going to blow open the safe in the express car and climb out with whatever was inside. The train stopped to the signal all right, and the Colonel fired a couple of shots just to let the engineer know we meant business. The engineer and fireman at once threw up their hands, and then the Colonel turns to Ed, who was standing there like a man poleaxed, and says to him mighty sharp, just like as if he was speaking to a regiment of soldiers, "You keep these 2 men covered. Come on, Jack," he says to me, and then we steps up to the door of the express car, which the fellow inside had got locked and bolted. The Colonel fires his revolver in through the lock, then flung his shoulder agin the door, and it went in with a crash, which was followed instantly by another crash, for the little expressman was game right through. He'd put out the lights and was blazing away at the open door. The Colonel sprang for cover inside the car and wasn't touched, but one of the shots took me just above the knee and broke my leg, so I went down in a heap. The minute the Colonel counted 7 shots, he was onto that express messenger like a tiger and had him tied up in a hard knot before he could shake a stick. Then, quick as a wink, he struck a match and lit the lamp. Plucky as the express messenger was, he looked scared to death, and now when Colonel Jim held a pistol to his head, he gave up the keys and told him how to open the safe. I had fallen back against the corner of the car inside and was groaning with pain. Colonel Jim was scooping out the money from the shelves of the safe and stuffing it into a sack. "Are you hurt, Jack?" he cried. "Yeah, my leg's broke." "Don't let that trouble you. We'll get you clear all right. Do you think you can ride your horse?" "I don't believe it," I said. "I guess I'm done for." And I thought I was. Colonel Jim never looked round, but he went through that safe in a way that'd make your hair curl, throwing aside the bulky packages after tearing them open, taking only cash, which he thrust into a bag he had with him, till he was loaded like a millionaire. Then suddenly he swore, for the train began to move. "What's that fool Ed doing?" he shouted, rising to his feet. At that minute Ed came in, pistol in each hand, and his face ablaze. "Here, you cursed thief!" he cried. "I didn't come with you to rob a train." "Get outside, you fool!" roared Colonel Jim. "Get outside and stop this train. Jack's got his leg broke. Don't come another step toward me, or I'll kill you." But Ed, he walked right on, Colonel Jim backing. Then there was a shot that rang like cannon fire in the closed car, and Ed fell forward on his face. Colonel Jim turned him over, and I saw he'd been hit square in the middle of the forehead. The train was now going at good speed, and we were already miles away from where our horses were tied. I never heard a man swear like Colonel Jim. He went through the pockets of Ed and took a bundle of papers that was inside his coat, and this he stuffed away in his own clothes. Then he turned to me, and his voice was like a lamb. "Jack, old man," he said, "I can't help you. They're going to nab you, but not for murder. The expressman there will be your witness. It isn't murder anyhow on my part, but self-defence. You saw he was coming at me when I warned him to keep away." All this he said in a loud voice for the expressman to hear, and then he bent over to me and whispered, "I'll get the best lawyer I can for you, but I'm afraid they're bound to convict you, and if they do, I'll spend every penny of this money to get you free. You call yourself Wyoming Ed at the trial. I've taken all this man's papers so that he can't be identified, and don't you worry if you're sentenced, for remember I'll be working night and day for you, and if money can get you out, You'll be got out.